Welcome to Focus Radio and Television. This is Anthony Rayo, and this is Focus Lake County's radio program brought to you by Red Apples Media. You're listening to us here, I believe it's actually the fourth Thursday of the month this week, but usually we're on, you can hear us on the first and third Thursday of every month on WLBE My 790 at 1:30 in the afternoon. Focus Magazine is, of course, on stands right now, the May issue, but when you're watching, the June issue will have come out, and that's all about social networking, and some interesting stuff in there. We have the conundrum of social networking in Lake County and how you or your family or even the businesses you deal with are affected by that. So hopefully you're watching on LSTV or listening on the radio right now, and we're going to welcome Marcia Hilty, who is the circuit director for the Lake County and actually 5 counties. You mentioned Hernando, Sumter, Marion, and Citrus.
Lake and Citrus, yes.
Yeah, Lake and Citrus. So you're the circuit director of Guardian Ad Litem.
Yes.
Now, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, some people know about Guardian Ad Litem in kind of an overall sense. Oh, they help children. They're advocates for children. But tell me a little bit about the history. I know Guardian Ad Litem, 1980 was about the time it was formed. But what does it do and how was it founded? What was it founded on? Who's behind it?
Well, a judge out in Washington decided that he wanted to gain additional information, more information about the state of the children that were being talked about in his courtroom. He felt that he needed an unbiased, non-bureaucratic person to talk with him and assess the situation. And so he decided to recruit some volunteers and liked what was happening, and then decided to have it go statewide, and that grew into what is now called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocate. It's a nationwide organization. We here in Florida, the Guardian Ad Litem program, are members of CASA, and it's just been a tremendous effort to help abused and neglected children.
Yeah, so now you deal with a lot of foster children, and you were saying many of your children that you do deal with, that you help and advocate for, are very young.
Yes, most of our children here in the 5th Judicial Circuit are below the age of 8. And statewide, the majority of the children removed from their parents' care are below the age of 13.
Wow. Now, in the 5th Circuit, which is where Lake County is in,
yes,
how many children are actually involved in Guardian Ad Litem?
In the 5th Circuit, we have, sadly, over 1,900 children who are involved with the courts due to abuse and neglect. Here in Lake County, we have over 300 children.
So there's a big need for volunteers, I would imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, how do you sign up for volunteering? How do you get involved? I'm sure there's a pretty step-by-step process for that.
Yes, if you're over the age of 21 and you can pass a level 2 background check and certainly go through 30 hours of training and demonstrate your passion for children and your ability to be flexible and objective, we want you to consider becoming a volunteer. We ask you to be assigned to a case and become the voice for the child to make sure that no one associated with that case number forgets that there's a child attached to those numbers.
Now, who do you go to? Who do you either call on the phone or you can go on the internet to find out more about becoming?
Yes, you can go to our website at www.guardianadlitem.org and learn more about us. There's a section devoted specifically to the 5th Circuit. You can download an application and submit it to us, or you can call Susan Trump, who is my local recruiter, at 352-343-2736, and she will talk with you to gather information, make sure your expectations are consistent with what we're able to provide, and then schedule an interview and talk with you more specifically about who we are and what we do.
And the next step is the volunteer part of the program, the training. And
yes.
Now Susan, when I talked to her the other day, was telling me at the end of July 29th, I believe, you're going to have more training. How's that work?
We've got a training coming up in June and another one in July. We try to offer trainings almost every month. They're in different locations, obviously, but we do our best to accommodate those individuals who are interested. If you wish to become enrolled in our upcoming training, you would just call the number that I just mentioned, and we'll do our best to get you enrolled.
Perfect. And call in advance.
Yes, yes, call now, please.
Yes, you can't just show up and say, oh, I want to volunteer.
We would prefer that you not do that, because sometimes people have the wrong conception about what it is to serve as a guardian ad litem.
What does it really mean to serve for you personally? Why did you get involved in guardian ad litem?
I got involved because I felt that it offered the best intervention for the buck, for the state taxpayers' buck. We predominantly rely on trained volunteers to serve as advocates. I have a staff of about 43 individuals, both human service professionals and attorneys, who supervise the work of the volunteers. But our volunteers are really the foot soldiers. They go out, they befriend these children, they work with the parents, they gather information, they come back with that information, and they talk to the judges, and they tell the judges, this is what little Susie needs, this is what Johnny needs. This is why I don't think the children should be reunited with their parents right now. Parents need more time to overcome their mental health issue or treat their drug and alcohol issue.
Now, you mentioned that the backgrounds of the volunteers in Guardian Ad Litem are kind of diverse. Where do you see and who do you see coming in to volunteer?
Our volunteers represent all walks of life. Some of them have been stay-at-home moms. They've raised their children. Their children have all gone off to school, and now they want to contribute on a community level. Others are CEOs, or professionals. The common thread is that these individuals want to give back. They love children. They want to ensure a better world for the next generation, and so they become engaged.
Now, the engagement, how much time does it take for a volunteer each month or each week?
Initially, it's a little more time consuming if you're assigned to a brand new case, because you're trying to meet with everyone involved. You're gathering information to determine what happened and what needs to happen to prevent the situation from occurring again. So I would estimate anywhere from 12 to 15 hours a month the first 3 to 4 months. After that, it dies down a bit, because you're monitoring compliance with the case plan that has been developed by the court. A case plan simply says, parents, you're going to do this, that, and the other thing in order to get your children back, and Department of Children and Families, you're going to provide these services for the parents and for the children should they need them.
Now, the guardians themselves, what are some of the activities that they're able to do with the children now?
Guardians do so many things. I can't say enough good things about what our guardians do. We are allowed now not only to serve as advocates in court, but we also are engaged in transporting children, which means our volunteers can take children to McDonald's for lunch, they can take them to a local park, they can take them fishing, over to the ocean, Disney. It's remarkable because so many of our children have never experienced these activities before. It's not uncommon for us to have children go out and shop with our volunteers, and they will tell our volunteers, this is the first time I've ever had an outfit with the tag still on. So.
How does that make you feel? How does that make the volunteers feel when they hear something like that they've affected a child?
Well, Theodore Roosevelt used to say, it's the person that gets engaged, that gets in the ring, that he admired. And that's what I admire too. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and complain about the state of the world. It's a lot harder to say, hey, I'm going to commit to making a difference. And that's what our volunteers do day in and day out. And they do so in an extraordinary fashion. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. So that commitment is something that obviously is close to you, close to all the guardians.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's individuals taking responsibility, performing their civic duty, if you will.
Yeah. Now, tell me again, who do you call and where do you go on the web?
Here locally in Lake County, call Susan Trump. She's my recruiter, and you can reach her at 343-2736. Otherwise, you can visit our website at www.guardianatlitem.org.
And that's Guardian, Adlitem. Now, you were
Yes.
telling me a little bit about what that means, the expression in
It's
Latin.
it's Latin, which is unfortunate because it's hard for people to figure it out. But really, it means that you're associated with the suit, with the case.
Right, with the court system
Yes.
and the state to help, because you're actually a state agency.
Yes, we're state and county funded.
Okay. So you have funding that depends on the volunteers that are involved and how many children are involved in the system at any given time?
Our state funding covers our salaries, and our county funding covers our locations, telephones, various other things. So we really could not function were it not for that funding.
Yeah, so the state and the county has a lot to do with that. I know
Absolutely.
you were talking a little bit about Denise Berry over at Forward Paths, and we're going to talk to Commissioner Leslie Campione in the second half of the show about the aging out of foster care.
Yes.
Now, how is an organization like that involved? And I know you mentioned Denise herself is involved with Guardian Ad Litem.
Yes, Denise is a fabulous volunteer. Several years ago, she was assigned to some teenagers, and she became very concerned about what happens to them as they near the age of 18. And for most of us who have children, we know that 18-year-olds are not prepared to really confront life solely on their own. And these children, not having had the proper adult supervision support, were less likely to succeed after they achieved the age of 18 than our own children. So she took it upon herself to establish a nonprofit called Forward Paths, and as focused on housing and education and providing for those things that most of us take for granted.
Yeah, and that kind of continues the mission of what Guardian Ad Litem is doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
We work collaboratively on these efforts.
So you really need volunteers is the biggest thing that you need.
Yes, we do. Unfortunately, the numbers continue to exceed our resources. We need volunteers. Here in Lake County, our average volunteer age is about 64. Statewide, it's 53. So we have volunteers who are caring for aging parents or confronting health-related issues. And so we have to continuously replenish our volunteer force.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's a lot of retired volunteers as
Yes.
well up in the villages and Plantation. I know Arlington Ridge is where that next training in July is going to be.
Absolutely.
So you must have a concentration of volunteers in those kind of communities?
Yes, yes. We focus on those communities because they've been good to us. They understand that we need their help. And many of them will say, you know, I can only play so much golf. I really want to keep myself engaged, and so they choose our program.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it is really a civic responsibility to the community to be involved and to help.
It is, and I think the individuals that we recruit and talk with, you know, they really feel that as they reflect back on their lives and the good fortunes they've experienced or the trials and tribulations. They realize that they can bring their experience to the table and help parents who are struggling, help parents who have stumbled, and put them on the right track so they become contributing citizens as opposed to burdens on our communities.
Last question I really have for you, is there an experience that stands out in your mind about helping a child or something you saw that really affected you personally?
I myself was assigned to a child years ago who at the time had been over-medicated and diagnosed as diabetic. Her facial features, everything about her just said that she was, you know, a mess, basically. One of the first things I did was to make sure she was seen by a pediatrician and thoroughly evaluated. And lo and behold, she was indeed on too many medications, and she was misdiagnosed as being diabetic. And so we got her off all of those medications, and she's doing much better today than she was years ago.
Firsthand how this has helped. And you, of course, what would you say to people to make sure that they have a motivation to get involved?
I would say to anyone that's listening to this or viewing the exchange here, that you can make a profound difference. I don't know of too many volunteer opportunities that allows you to sit in a courtroom, stand up before a judge and say, I think this needs to happen. You are really the fork in the road for not only the parents but also the child. And it's a gift that you give these families and these children, and it lasts a long time.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marcia.
Thank you.
We really appreciated it. And of course, volunteer for Guardian Ad Litem. Find out more. Go to the website. Call. We'll be right back here on Focus Radio and Television with Commissioner Leslie Campione talking about the next step after foster care has ended. Welcome back to Focus Radio and Television. I'm Anthony Rayo, and this is Focus Radio here on WLBE My 790 AM, or you could be watching us on LSTV. So we're glad you joined us again, and now we're going into a little interview with Commissioner Leslie Campione of Lake County, and we're going to be talking, we just finished talking about Guardian Ad Litem, but now we're going to be talking about aging out of foster care and the forward paths and other organizations and what Lake County is now trying to do. So welcome to the program.
Okay, well thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. So what is the involvement of Forward Paths that you know and that you've worked with Denise Berry? We had mentioned her in the previous segment as well.
Right. Well, Denise has made her rounds over at the County Commission office, and I believe she's had meetings with each of the county commissioners. And she's come to us to talk about the big obstacle, the key obstacle that they're running into as they seek to assist kids that are, as they say, aging out of foster care. They're turning 18, and oftentimes they're in high school, and they lose the housing that they have. So essentially what happens to these kids oftentimes is they literally become homeless. And there are some funding sources out there that can provide for their housing needs, but the process is very difficult to navigate. And depending on what their particular circumstances are at that time when they turn 18, it's a lot harder for some kids than other kids. So they don't have that permanent housing, they don't have that safety net, and Forward Paths was created by a group of caring Lake County residents who saw this very difficult situation, and they were trying to bridge that gap. So she came to see the county commissioners because of the housing side of this. Because what happens is kids are this age, 18, and they're applying to get an apartment. They have no credit history. They don't have anyone to vouch for them. And oftentimes landlords just simply don't want to rent to someone in that age group. So it's just extremely difficult to find a place for these young people to live and make that transition into true adulthood. If they are looking for a job, they need transportation. It's very different than growing up in a traditional home and you borrow a family member's car until you make enough money to have your own car payment and pay your insurance. These kids don't have those opportunities. So that's what Forward Paths is all about. And again, she reached out to the County Commission to see, is there something that we could do to help on the housing side?
So what is being done now in Lake County specifically, and how is that? What are you spearheading to either make changes or continue the efforts that are already being made?
Well, I like your word, spearheading. I'm simply sort of taking Denise's, the framework that they've put out there, and because I'm sitting on the county's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and I've got a background in housing and land use and development approvals and things like that, and permitting, I felt that it was a good fit for me to try to step in and be a catalyst on the county commission side to see if we could pull together people in the community that might be able to step up and help with whether it's locating an existing apartment complex, duplexes, homes, or one of the ideas that's been floated is the possibility if we had 3.5 to 5 acres of property, we could build a small community, and there would be adults that would live on site. The young people would have their own homes, and one of the ideas would be tiny homes. You may have seen those, on TV or read about them, but just enough space so that you have what you need to live and create a little community environment, a village environment, and it would be transitional. I mean, it wouldn't be a permanent place to live. By the age of 23, it's time to leave the nest, if not sooner. From that particular location. So that's really what we're hoping to do, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to be on the show today, was to reach out to Lake County property owners to ask, is there anyone out there that has a 3.5 acre parcel up to about 5 acres that might be interested in partnering or donating property? Maybe they need a tax write-off, or they just want to step up and help. Also looking for organizations, builders, anyone who would step up and be involved in this. So that's where we're at. I've been working with our housing department in Lake County, looking for a revenue stream that would assist us with taking care of some of the initial cost of putting this in place. It would be a pilot program. There's no guarantee that this in fact will work, but they've got all of the right ingredients in place now from the standpoint of providing, a support system for these kids, life coaching, helping them with their finances. They're doing all those things, but they just need a place for them to live, a roof over their heads.
So who would you call to, like, if you had a piece of land that you wanted to donate or rent out or whatever, however you want to get involved, who could you get with?
Well, right now I'm working very closely with Denise Burry with Forward Paths. So I would suggest, if you've heard about this and you may have property or you have an idea, please contact me. My email address is lcampione, so it's LCAMPIONE at lakecountyfl.gov. And you could also reach out to Denise at Forward Paths, which would be info@forwardpaths.org. So either way, if you could just get in touch with me or get in touch with Denise, we would take it from there and start trying to pull everybody together. And a lot of this is this is a grassroots effort. It's amazing to think that across the state of Florida, this is a need that is going unmet. There has been some legislation in the past that is directed at assisting kids that age out of foster care with their education after high school, or assisting with them getting their high school diploma or GED. But it's hard to navigate. Not everybody fits into those specific categories, and so you have so many people that fall through the cracks. It looks like this year alone, there will be, I believe it's about 30 to 40 kids in high schools in Lake County that literally will age out of foster care and they will need a place to live.
Yeah, and it was being explained to me that they might have the option even up to the age of 23 according to the state law now, but not all of them want to take advantage of the option or qualify to take advantage of the option. So something like this obviously would go a long way in helping to provide something that wasn't there before.
Right, and for example, one of the requirements for one of these programs is that they actually have a job. Well, as Denise can explain so well, because she's seen this firsthand, you've got to have transportation. You got to get to the job. You can't be homeless and go in and try to get that job and come to work presentable, and all of those kind of logistical things that so many people we take for granted, but for these young people, it's especially difficult because those things just aren't readily available to them. So the legislation that has been passed, I'm happy that that's happened, and we're glad we're moving in the right direction, but not everybody fits into each one of these categories.
Exactly. So what's the next step for Lake County, and what's the time frame of these steps?
Well, actually tomorrow, having a meeting. Denise will be there. We've got several different players around the table that we're going to brainstorm and look at some possibilities on the funding side. And we're hoping to hear back from people in the community as far as possible locations where we may try to do this pilot project. Or if we find out that there is another facility out there in the way of maybe a small apartment complex or a group of duplexes, something like that we could utilize. But so the next step really is just to keep it moving along. In the meantime, Denise and Forward Pass, they will continue to try to place these young people in traditional rental situations. And again, as I said, it's just so difficult to find those opportunities. So I wish I could tell you a hard and fast timeline as far as, we're going to get this done within X number of days. But I'm hoping that we can take an idea back to the County Commission within probably the next month and just get the Commission's blessing that we're going in the right direction. And then in July, we would have to make an application for one particular funding source that we're looking at. It's a federal program that is for affordable housing type needs, and this should fit squarely in that particular program. So what I'm hoping is that we would at least make that application and make the commitment to go after those dollars. And so
as many people as can get involved is what you need, really.
Exactly, yes. And I know that the organization itself, too, is looking for volunteers, mentors, people that have business experience that might be able to help with some of the training that they do as far as managing finances, clergy. Pretty much every skill set out there is something that you, if you're willing to donate your time, you can help pass what you've learned and your experience onto these young people who otherwise they don't have that family structure.
Right.
They don't have anyone to go home to after they graduate, hopefully graduate from high school, which unfortunately the statistics are that if you're in foster care, the odds of graduating so much lower.
Yeah, well, they said 1.1 GPA for many of them who do.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Campione.
And
Leslie,
please, if you heard about this,
do
get in
something.
contact with me.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to Focus TV or watching us on LSTV, and we'll see you soon. We're a catalyst for conversation in the community, so keep up with Focus Magazine, and of course, don't forget to keep us in your focus.